consumer price index is a way to compare prices in different years or the value of money in different years. So if we were to think about, maybe talking to one of our grandparents or our parents, and they tell us how much they made per hour in their first job, or how much their first car cost, and we look back and we think, wow, that was so inexpensive compared to now. That's a little bit too simple of a way of thinking of it, because all the costs were less, generally speaking, years ago, including how much people made, how much money they made, and then by extension, the cost. So even though maybe the cost of that first car was a lot less, you were also making a lot less. And so even though now things cost more, we generally hope that we're making more money. So we have to kind of come up with a way to be able to compare prices and wages and things like that in different years. These arguments are really important when you start advocating for things like higher minimum wage and things along those lines. So the idea is that there's different components that they look at that go into computing what's called the Consumer Price Index. And they take and they look at things that almost all of us are going to have as some of our costs of living. So you can see in the table things like housing, transportation, food, and etc. And they break it down by percents generally of what those kind of are of everybody's total budgets. And then they look at how much these types of things change from year to year. And they give as kind of a starting point an index of 100, and then that's sort of the reference point, and other computations then go kind of from that reference or that index of 100. So there's a lot of explanation in here that I'm, again, in the interest of trying to keep videos shorter, I would just encourage you to kind of read through some of the derivation of some of these and some of the explanation that's provided. On this next page here, we can see this is the official Consumer Price Index. You can see that that base year, I said they kind of give an index of 100. That isn't actually one particular year. It's a group of years, somewhere in the grouping of 1982 to 1984. And then comparisons are made after that. So just kind of as a quick look at this table, which will of course be on our website under the CPI data file, you can make some initial comparisons here, just looking like, for example, so in, let's say, the year 2014, it would cost $236.70 if you look at the table. For the same goods and services that would have cost us $96.50 in 1982. Or you could say walking around in 1989 and having $124 in your pocket would be equivalent to walking around in the year 2006 with $201.60 in your pocket. So these are basically saying that, having this amount of money in this year is equivalent to this amount of money in this year. There's a few different ways that we, verbalize or express that. And so if you look down below at example 1, some of that's just verbalizing what I was just mentioning. So in 1990, it would cost $130.70 for goods and services that would have cost us $99.60 in 1983. Or $130.70 would buy us the same amount of goods and services that $99.60 would have in 1983. Or those two are equivalent. So $99.60 in 1983 is equivalent to $137 in 1990. So those are kind of all the interpretations that I was mentioning before. So just sort of written out there. So that's kind of the notion of what we're talking about here. So let's take a look at an example. And so this example says that the average price, according to this website, of gasoline in 2008 was $3.30 per gallon. and in 2014 it was $3.44 per gallon. So we want to figure out which year was more or less expensive relative to the time. And so that's kind of the key value, because obviously, just kind of looking at it at just quick glance, if you will, it certainly looks like 2014 gas was more expensive. But the key here is looking at it relative to the time. So was paying $3.44 for gas more or less relative to 2014, to that year, and what other costs were when comparing to paying $3.30 in 2008. So maybe in 2014, maybe the wages were generally higher, and so maybe that actually was less relative to the other costs of the time. So that's kind of a broad way, I guess I could say, to think about that. So when we talk about just what the actual prices are, and I said, it certainly looks like in 2014 it's more expensive, that's what we call nominal. Like the actual cost is called nominal prices or current prices, but typically nominal. So we would say nominally, gas was more expensive in 2014. But generally, most things increase over time. Not everything. There are some things that go down. Sometimes just, crazy things that happen in the markets. Obviously, we're kind of living through that today. But also technology is a good example. When it first comes out, a new flat screen TV or a brand new smartphone, when they first came out, were more expensive. And then as they're on the market for a longer period of time, those costs of new technologies tend to decrease. So not everything goes up over time, but most things, I think we're pretty comfortable saying, generally do. All right, so here's what we have. We need to take into account this changing value of money, and that's what the Consumer Price Index can help us do. So what we really want to do is we generally are always going to convert the older years, in this case 2008 price of gas, into what it would have been equivalent to in this case, the more current year that we're comparing to is 2014. So we want to convert that $3.30 in 2008. What would that be like paying in 2014? So what we know from the Consumer Price Index table is $215.30 in 2008 dollars is equal to $236.70 in 2014. So that's what we know. These two are equivalent in the Consumer Price Index. That's what it tells us, basically, that having $236.70 in your pocket in 2014 would have been like having $215.30 in your pocket in 2008. Those two values in their respective years kind of would buy you the same amount of stuff, so to speak. All right, so one way that we can convert this $3.30 in 2008 up to what it would have been equivalent to in 2014 would be to set up a proportion. So the proportion that we have here is on the left-hand side. What we have is this is our Consumer Price Index here. So those are the numbers that we get from our Consumer Price Index. And then what we have on the right-hand side, those are our gas prices. So we're going to set up a proportion. As you can see, that's the year 2014, the ratio of $2014 over $2008. And then the Consumer Price Index proportional to, on the right-hand side, gas prices with this common ratio of $2014 to or over $2008. So if that's the order, then what I'm trying to, filling in here for my Consumer Price Index, and on the right-hand side, I'm trying to convert the $3.30 in 2008 to what it would be equivalent to in 2014. So if we do a little equation solving here, and we were to multiply both sides by the $3.30. So we're trying to solve for x. Notice I kind of transposed each side of the equation here. But in order to solve for x, we were trying to get rid of this denominator and we do that by multiplying by it on both sides. So now on the left-hand side, I guess I have that reduced down here in the next term. So let me undo that if I can. My undo button isn't really working here. Let me just erase. There we go. Okay. So in the next, I didn't realize I already had that kind of shown as reducing here in the next step. Now, on the right-hand side, what's going to reduce isn't going to be the number, so my reducing line's a little off here. On the right-hand side, what we're going to reduce is going to be the units of the $2008. And what we have left to compute then is going to be the 236.70 and times the 330 divided by the 215.30. So this is the arithmetic that we need to do in order to solve for x. And then the units that I'm left in, well, that is, of course, the units that remain are what I want on the right-hand side, which is the $2,014. So if we do that arithmetic, what we get is 3.628 ... So essentially, what we now have is that X, what we were looking for, the price of gas, would have been $3 and about 63 cents in 2014. So paying $3.30 in 2008, if that only rose as much as what other goods and services were increasing, that would have been equivalent to $3.63 in 2014. Another way of saying it, when Americans paid $3.30 in 2008, that's the same thing as them paying $3.63 in the year 2014. Those two are the same. Now, what they were actually paying in 2014, if you remember in the very beginning of the problem, what they were actually paying in 2014 was $3.44. But the 2008 price would have been equivalent to $3.63 in 2014. So once you are in the same year, and in this case 2014, that allows you to now actually compare the prices. So in this case, because that 363 is actually more than the 344, or to say it differently, the 344 that they were actually paying in 2014 is really less than what they would have been paying if the 330 only rose at a rate that was equivalent to other goods and services. So what we really end up with is comparing these two, that gas was actually cheaper in 2014. So this value, my big old inequality here, so because this 363 is bigger than this 344, that tells us that this value was the cheaper value. And that 344, that was what they were actually paying in 2014, as opposed to the 363, which was just the converting up of the 2008 price so we could compare it. I know this is a little confusing at first. We're going to do another example or so. But once we've converted to the same year, and that's what we did up here, that's now called constant dollars or real dollars. I will tend to use constant dollars when you've converted a price up to a current year. All right, so let's look at another example. And in this one, what we want to kind of observe is how we could have taken that proportion process and actually done this a little differently. And this is important because this is how we're going to want to do this eventually when we do this in Excel. So if you think about what we ended up doing at the kind of the last step of the arithmetic there, when we ended up solving for x, we had this starting value. So this was the price that we were converting up. So this was our let's just say this is the original value, and we're converting that up into, and so my goal was to get to the 2014. So my goal is to convert this original value into $2014. So that is my goal. Now, how we do that is something that in other math classes, in the algebra class, we might have just referred to this as dimensional analysis, where we're going to convert units. So what we're going to do, this is the proportion process, but now just thinking of how the final answer ended up being constructed. And so what we ended up doing is we multiplied by a version of 1, is what I'm going to call it, from the CPI table. So from the CPI table, we have this ratio of the CPIs. And so this is really a version of 1 because these two are equivalent, these amounts in their different years. The key is recognizing that whichever one that you're trying to convert into, that's what's going to go in your numerator. So if my goal was $2014, then that tells me that's the CPI value I want in my numerator. And if I am trying to reduce or get out of the year 2008, then that's the value that we put in our denominator, so that we are able to reduce the $2008 and be left with our units of the $2004. So that's going to be, in general, how we can express this is to say we are going to start with any original, so any price in its original year. We're going to multiply that by this ratio of the CPIs, kind of as a version of 1 here, so that, you know, whatever this original year or the earlier year, I guess I called it year E for year earlier, that's the one that goes into the denominator so that we get to reduce out of that year. And the year that goes into the numerator is the newer, the more current year that you're trying to convert into. So I call that year N for the more current year. So this is the year N that you are trying to convert into. So this again is your goal year you're trying to convert into. All right, let's look at one more example here kind of by hand, and then we'll eventually, next video, we'll do these in Excel. So let's look at this one. So suppose that in 2014, I shouldn't say suppose that, it's true that in 2014, U.S. senators made an annual salary of $174,000, which is actually still the current salary. 20 years ago, 1994, 20 years prior to that, U.S. senators made an annual salary of $133,600. So the question is, which is better relative to the time? So again, what we would say is nominally, U.S. senators make more in 2014 than they do in 1994. But most people do. To keep up with rising costs, most people's salaries tend to go up over a 20-year time frame. So the question is, let's say you had to pick a year you were going to be a senator. In terms of money only, would you have rather been a senator making $174,000 in 2014, or would you have rather had a salary of $133,600 in 1994? So this is the idea of which is better relative to the time. All right, so as a rule of thumb, we're always going to start with the earliest year and convert it up to the current year so we can compare. So that means in this example, we are starting with this $133,600. Okay, that is what the senators made in 1994. Now, I'm going to have to multiply by a ratio of values from the Consumer Price Index, where I want to have whatever the 1994 value is from my Consumer Price Index, because that's the year that I want to reduce and I want to get out of that year so that I can get into my goal year as I'm trying to convert this up to $2014. So I want to get into $2014. So this is the value that I'll need from the CPI table in my numerator. So again, I can get into my goal of the $2014. All right, so if we flip back to our Consumer Price Index table, I need 1994 and 2014. So 1994 is the 148.2, and the 2014 is the is the 236.7. So those are the values we need from our Consumer Price Index table there. So let's go ahead and fill those in. So from our Consumer Price Index, we had, this was the 236.7 in 2014, was equivalent to 148.20 in 1994. So now the only thing that I would need to do is that arithmetic. And I kind of did that arithmetic in advance. So multiplying the 133,600 times the 236.7 divided by the 148.2. Try it for yourself. Make sure you're getting the same result here. But you should end up with, we should get to $213,381, and let's squeeze in here 38 cents. So this is what we would be making in 2014 dollars. All right, so let's think about this. For a senator that was making $133,600 in 1994, that would be like making $213,000 in the year 2014. Those two are equivalent to each other. So now that we have this in 2014 dollars, we can compare it to what senators actually were making in the year 2014. And what we see is that this is greater than, this 213,000 number is greater than the 174,000 that senators were actually, or are actually making in the year 2014. So this is what they were actually making. So this tells us that this 213 is obviously bigger than this 174,000, which is what they were actually making in 2014, and therefore, squeeze this in here, therefore it was better, the salary was better for senators in 1994. So 1994 was better. They were making a better wage relative to their time. Nominally, they made less. But another way to say this is that salary of $133,600, this salary had more buying power in 1994 than the $174,000 salary does in 2014. They could buy more for $133,600 in 1994 than they can with the $174,000 in the year 2014. So this salary has a greater, what we call, buying power. Okay, so that's going to be one of the things you'll have to do is be able to just take like a earlier price, convert it up into constant dollars, which is what we did here. That was in 2014 constant dollars, and then make a comparison. So where we're headed next time is we're going to be looking at taking a whole spreadsheet of data and then converting it, doing this exact formula. So for example, here's the price of homes, single family homes. And again, generally things increase over time. We did have this kind of housing market, the bubble sort of burst, and so there was some decline here. But kind of focus on all these decades in here. And so prices generally go up. But what we're not able to see is, are those prices rising more or less than what other goods and services are? So are they rising more or less than everything else during those times? And so that's what the, of course, consumer price index is going to do. So next time we'll come back and we're going to look at how to model this in Excel.